In the heart of the galaxy, where countless stars blinked like distant eyes watching over a silent void, the universe carried its rhythm, its long-standing peace. No one noticed the quiet planet Earth, a little blue speck hidden in the vastness of space, forgotten by all but the faintest whispers of cosmic wind. For centuries, Earth had been ignored. The humans, small and primitive compared to the vast galactic civilizations, had never been seen as a threat. No one cared for their petty wars or their small technological advances, but something had changed. A strange sound, like the hum of a forgotten machine, echoed through the dark corridors of space. It was faint at first, barely detectable. But then, it grew stronger, clearer. A signal sent from Earth itself. On a quiet night, a deep space observatory on a faraway world, known as Parnuk, was the first to pick it up. The signal was soft, like a whisper, but it was unmistakable. The humans were awake. The lead scientist at the observatory, Dr. Zarek, was the first to notice. He sat in front of a massive console, scrolling through data on a screen. His fingers paused when he saw the anomaly, a strange frequency bouncing back and forth. The numbers didn't add up. It couldn't be. The humans had been dormant for centuries. The idea that they could send a signal across the galaxy seemed impossible, but there it was, unmistakable. A slight flicker on the screen confirmed it. The humans had somehow awakened. Not just any signal, but one that carried a message, a call, however cryptic, coming from the very heart of Earth. Dr. Zarek's mind raced. The transmission was coded, layered with patterns and signals that seemed foreign, even to an advanced mind like his. He couldn't understand the meaning, but he knew one thing for certain. The humans had done something they weren't supposed to. They had sent a message across the universe. His fingers danced across the console, attempting to make sense of the strange patterns, the familiar yet unfamiliar hum. And then, as if the universe itself was waking up, a second sound joined the first. It was subtle at first, like the rustling of old pages turning in a forgotten library. But soon it became clearer, and then unmistakable, the sound of ancient machinery stirring. Impossible, Dr. Zarek whispered to himself. It sounded like a warning, something ancient, something that carried a weight beyond understanding. He knew he had to tell the others. He immediately opened a communication line with the Council of Worlds, a galactic governing body that monitored the activities of countless civilizations. The holographic image of Council leader Irida blinked into existence, her eyes narrowing when she saw the panic in Dr. Zarek's face. "Dr. Zarek, what's the matter?" she asked, her voice calm, but with an edge of concern. "We've received a signal," Dr. Zarek said urgently, his hand shaking as he pointed to the data on the screen. "From Earth. The humans. They've awoken." Irida's expression changed immediately. She had heard the stories. The legends passed down from the oldest races. The humans had once been a powerful species, but their existence had been erased from history after a catastrophic event. The galaxy had agreed to leave them in peace, to let them fade into oblivion. Now someone had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not just waking up, they were reaching out. "What do you mean, they've awoken?" Irida asked slowly, her voice now filled with fear. "Explain it to me, Dr. Zarek." "The signal. It's like nothing I've ever seen before," Dr. Zarek explained. It's layered, with patterns that speak of something more. But more importantly, I think it's a call. A signal sent to us, to everyone. The humans didn't just wake up from sleep, they've activated something." The word hung in the air for a moment. Activated. Irida's eyes widened, and she immediately turned to her advisors, who were now standing silently at the table. "Activate the defense protocols," she ordered. "The humans have been asleep for far too long. If they're awakening, it's because something powerful has been triggered." Dr. Zarek stared at the screen, his thoughts spinning out of control. What had the humans awoken? What force was lying dormant on their world, a force so powerful that it had been hidden for centuries. The holographic figures of the council appeared behind Arita, their faces grim. They all knew what this meant. The humans were no longer the insignificant, primitive species they had once been. Something had changed. Something had triggered this unexpected event, and now the universe had to reckon with it. As the communication line cut off, Dr. Zurich turned to look at the data once more. The hum continued, growing louder, clearer, but still indecipherable. The signal was relentless, like a call that wouldn't stop until someone answered. But what would happen when the message reached its destination? Would the humans understand the consequences of their actions? As the room fell into an eerie silence, a thought settled deep in Dr. Zurich's mind. The humans had just broken the most sacred law of the universe, and now the universe would have to answer. Dr. Zurich sat at his desk, the strange signal still echoing in the back of his mind. The data, now pouring in from multiple observatories, confirmed his worst fear. The signal was not only real, it was growing stronger. The hum, once faint, now surged with increasing intensity, reverberating through the space station like an alarm. The humans had done something monumental. But what? Across the galaxy, a growing sense of unease spread like wildfire. Civilizations far more advanced than Earth's had been following the signal with trepidation. They had known the rule, the one law that governed the entire universe: never wake the humans. The history of Earth, buried beneath layers of time and cosmic dust, told a terrifying tale. The humans had been too dangerous, too unpredictable. They had once been capable of shaking the very foundations of the universe, and then suddenly they were gone, forgotten. Now that was changing. The Council of Worlds convened once again, this time with a sense of urgency. The alien races that made up the Council had lived through eons of peace, watching the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had carefully erased all evidence of Earth's existence from galactic records, ensuring no one would ever find out about the humans. It was for the safety of the galaxy. But now that secrecy was unraveling, and no one knew what would come of it. Council leader Arita paced in front of the holographic display, her hand resting nervously on her chin. The humans had awoken, but the question was, why now? "We've all heard the stories," Arita began, her voice grave. The humans were more than a threat. They were a power, a force we could not control. And now, they'd broken the one rule we've kept for millennia. An alien named Korath, one of the most respected warriors of the Veltrani species, nodded grimly. His race had long understood the danger of the humans. They had once been allies, but when the humans' thirst for power grew too great, the Veltrani were forced to retreat. "It is not just the humans that are dangerous," Korath said, his voice deep and full of warning. "The power they hold has never been fully understood. It's not just their technology or their weapons. It's the way they can adapt, evolve, and unite in ways we cannot. Once they start working together, once they awaken, they are unstoppable." Arita's eyes widened. But they've been dormant for centuries. Why would they suddenly activate the signal now? What have they discovered? The hologram of a young alien named Vesa flickered into existence. She was from the Ilithian race, a species known for their immense intelligence. Her bright green eyes reflected the anxiety she felt. "What if it isn't the humans that are awakening?" she asked softly. "What if it's something older, something that was buried with them?" The room fell silent. The possibility of something older than the humans, something ancient, was far too dangerous to ignore. "We need to investigate," Arita said, her voice firm. "We can't allow this to continue without knowing exactly what's going on. We need to find the source of the signal." A large screen materialized in front of the council, showing Earth from space. The planet was silent, peaceful, as if nothing had changed. But those who had been watching closely knew better. The signal was growing, and with it, the tension across the galaxy. Meanwhile, far beneath the surface of Earth, in an ancient underground facility forgotten by time, the humans were waking up. No one knew what had been dormant beneath their feet. No one knew what had been hidden there, waiting to be discovered. Lena, an archaeologist who had stumbled upon the ancient ruins, stood in front of a large metal door deep in the heart of an underground chamber. The air was thick with dust, and the walls seemed to vibrate with energy. Her heart raced as she approached the door. For years, she had been studying the ancient myths of Earth, stories of gods, of warriors, and of a long-forgotten war. But this was different. This was real. The door before her wasn't like anything she had ever seen. It was made of a strange metal, covered in markings and symbols she couldn't decipher. She reached out and placed her hand against it. The moment her skin touched the surface, a jolt of energy shot through her, and the door began to hum. Lena pulled her hand back in shock, but it was too late. The signal, once faint and distant, now surged with power. The humans were waking up. The ground beneath Lena's feet began to shake as the machinery inside the facility stirred to life. She backed away slowly, her breath quickening. She could feel it. The presence, an ancient force, deep and ancient, that had been lying in wait for centuries. She knew what she had found. This wasn't just a discovery. It was the beginning of something far worse than she could ever have imagined. Back at the council, Erita was staring at her own holographic display. The humans had awakened. Yes, but something else was happening. The signal was no longer just a faint hum. It was becoming a roar, a sound that was felt across the galaxy. No one knew what had happened beneath the surface of Earth, but they all understood one thing. The humans had activated something. The Guardians, those who had kept watch over the galaxy for eons, began to stir. They knew what was happening. The signal was a call to arms. And it wasn't just the humans that were waking up. The universe had always been a quiet place. Civilizations rose and fell, and stars burned out only to be replaced by new ones. But there was one constant: the humans, or at least there had been. Now, after eons of silence, the awakening of Earth sent ripples through the galaxy. The signal that had begun as a whisper was now a full-blown roar, and its origin was unmistakable. On the distant planet of Parnok, Dr. Zurich continued his frantic work. He had been monitoring the signal ever since it had first appeared. But now, something had changed. The hum was no longer just data. It was alive. He sat at his console, eyes glued to the screen. The data was flowing in faster than he could process it. But one thing was certain. Earth was no longer just a forgotten planet. The humans were waking up. And with them, the ancient power they had buried deep beneath their world. The room around him felt cold, like an ancient tomb, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Every passing second seemed heavier than the last. And then, without warning, an alert flashed on his screen. Incoming transmission. Dr. Zurich's hands trembled as he activated the transmission. It was from Council Leader Erita, and the urgency in her voice was clear. "Dr. Zurich," she said, her holographic image flickering in and out of focus. "The situation is more dire than we thought. The signal's frequency has changed. It's not just a message anymore. It's a warning." "A warning?" Dr. Zurich asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "Yes," Erita replied, her eyes narrowing. "We've analyzed the signal more thoroughly. It's not just the humans we need to worry about. There's something else, something older, more dangerous, something that wants to wake up." Dr. Zurich's mind raced. He had suspected as much. The humans had always been a mystery, but now they were more than a forgotten species. They were a key to something far bigger. "I don't understand," he said. "What do you mean by something older? What could be worse than the humans?" Erita's voice dropped to a whisper, as though afraid the walls themselves might hear her. "You know the legends. The humans were once powerful, yes, but they were not the only ones. There was something else, something buried beneath their world, a force older than the universe itself." Dr. Zurich felt his stomach tighten. He had heard the ancient stories, the ones whispered in the halls of the council. Stories of a time before the galaxy was divided into peaceful civilizations, stories of a terrible war fought between ancient powers. And in the heart of that war, the humans had been at the center. But there had been something else, something that had been locked away, never to be disturbed. And now, they're waking it up. Zarek whispered. The thought was unimaginable. The humans had no idea what they were unleashing. Or maybe they did. Maybe they had always known. We're not sure yet, Erator responded. But what we do know is that the signal is a call. And the old ones are answering. We need to act quickly. If the humans have uncovered the truth, it's only a matter of time before the entire universe feels its consequences. Back on Earth, Lena stood frozen in the underground facility, watching as the walls around her came alive with energy. The ancient machine that had been dormant for millennia was now fully activated. There was a low rumble beneath her feet, like the growl of a sleeping giant. Her heart hammered in her chest as she stared at the device before her. The signal had been sent, but there was something else, something hidden, and now it was starting to reveal itself. The door she had tried to open was no longer just a door. It was a portal, a doorway into something far worse than she could have imagined. As Lena stepped closer, she could feel the weight of time pressing in on her. The markings on the walls around her began to glow faintly, revealing shapes and symbols that seemed to dance in the air, like ghosts from the past. She reached out, her hand trembling, and touched one of the glowing symbols. It was like nothing she had ever felt before. The energy from the symbol surged through her body, and for a moment, she felt as though she was being pulled into another time, another dimension. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet cracked open, and ancient machinery began to shift. Massive gears turned, and the low rumble grew louder. A deep voice, ancient and forgotten, echoed through the chamber. They have awoken us, and now they must face the consequences. Lena gasped, stumbling backward. What had she done? What had she unleashed? Back in the Galactic Council chamber, Dr. Zarek could feel the tension building. He could hear the panic in Erita's voice as she continued to relay the information. The humans, they didn't just activate the signal, she said, her voice barely a whisper now. They've awakened something else, something older than anything we've encountered. And it's not just a machine, it's alive. The galaxy was on the verge of a cosmic reckoning. The humans had broken the law of the universe, and they had done so unknowingly. But now, the ancient force that had been waiting beneath their feet had been released, and nothing would ever be the same. The universe hummed with energy, as if all the stars were holding their breath. It wasn't just the humans who had awoken something ancient beneath the surface of Earth. It was something else. The machine, hidden deep in the ruins of Earth's forgotten history, was not just a relic. It was a sentience, an ancient power that had waited for millennia to be stirred once more. In the galaxy, civilizations that had long dismissed Earth as nothing more than a backwater planet now looked on with growing dread. The message that had been sent across the stars wasn't just a signal, it was a warning. And as it grew louder, clearer, more urgent, it began to pull the attention of even the oldest and most powerful races. On the Council of Worlds, Erita's face was grim as she reviewed the latest data streaming in from every corner of the galaxy. The signal, which had once been nothing more than a faint hum, was now a force, a call sent out by the humans, but not entirely their own. We're too late, Erita muttered to herself, her eyes flickering across the screen. The signal, now decoded, carried within it a chilling message. It wasn't just a warning about the humans, it was a warning to everyone. They've awoken it. Dr. Zarek's voice came from the communicator, cutting through Erita's thoughts. Whatever it is, whatever was buried beneath Earth, it's waking up. And we might not have the strength to stop it. Erita's fingers tightened into fists. For centuries, she and the Council had maintained the delicate balance of the universe, avoiding conflict, keeping peace. The humans had once been a threat, yes, but they had been contained, forgotten. Now, this awakening threatened not only Earth, but the very foundation of everything they had built. And the worst part, no one knew what had been buried there. "We need to act fast," Irida said, turning to the holographic map of the galaxy. "We cannot afford to wait any longer. Whatever the humans have unleashed, we need to find it now." As the council scrambled to prepare, far below the surface of Earth, the true nature of what had been awakened became clear. Lena stood frozen in the heart of the underground facility, watching in awe and terror as the ancient machine before her came alive. The entire facility was shaking now, and the strange symbols on the walls were glowing brighter, pulsing with a rhythm of their own. It was almost as if the planet itself was responding to the machine's awakening. Lena had barely any time to think. The deep, rumbling voice from the chamber echoed again, this time with greater force. "You have awoken us. And now, we will take what is ours." It wasn't a warning. It was a declaration. Suddenly, the ground cracked, and massive metal doors that had been sealed for centuries began to open. The walls trembled as something shifted deep below, sending tremors throughout the facility. Lena stumbled back, her breath coming in short gasps. She wanted to run, but the pull of the machine, the pull of whatever it was awakening, kept her rooted to the spot. Then, with a loud crack, the final seal broke open, and before her stood something she couldn't comprehend. A massive structure, towering and impossibly ancient, gleaming with dark energy, thrumming with the power of untold eons. It wasn't just a machine. It was a temple, or perhaps a weapon, forged with materials no one had ever seen. Its surfaces shimmered like liquid metal, and it seemed to be alive, its pulse matching the rapid beat of Lena's heart. She reached out instinctively, her hand hovering over the cold surface of the machine. It was calling to her, and the closer she got, the more she could feel it. A terrible, ancient power that had been dormant for so long it was almost beyond understanding. And then the voice spoke again. "The final act has begun." Lena gasped as the floor beneath her feet began to collapse. The ground trembled violently, and the once stable chamber seemed to be disintegrating. The ancient machine hummed louder, its power growing by the second. A sudden flash of blinding light filled the room, and Lena was forced to shield her eyes. The ground cracked wide open, revealing a vast network of tunnels stretching deep into the core of Earth. She could feel the air change, becoming thick with energy and mystery. The voice came again, but this time it wasn't speaking to her. It was speaking to something else. "They are coming." Lena's heart sank. She had heard the legends, the ancient ones, the beings that had existed long before the first stars had even formed. The Sentinels, a race of cosmic guardians that once ruled the universe before they were betrayed and imprisoned beneath the surface of Earth. Their power was so great, so dangerous, that they had been sealed away to ensure the safety of all life. But now, the seal had been broken, and their awakening was imminent. Back in the council chamber, Dr. Zarek's voice crackled through the communicator. "Irida, it's worse than we thought. The humans didn't just wake something. They've unleashed the Sentinels. And now, they're coming for us." Irida's heart dropped as she turned to the council. The universe had made its rules for a reason. The humans had broken those rules, and now, they would pay the price. "We need to prepare for the worst," Irida said, her voice steady despite the growing fear. "The Sentinels are ancient beings. If they awaken fully, they could destroy everything in their path. And if they found their way to Earth—" She paused, eyes cold with dread. "If they found their way to Earth, then the galaxy will never be the same again." The air above Earth shimmered with an eerie energy, like the calm before a cosmic storm. The once peaceful planet was now at the center of a universe teetering on the edge of disaster. Lena stood at the center of the ancient chamber, unable to move as the machine continued to hum, its power growing. The voice of the Sentinels echoed once more, but this time, it wasn't just in her mind. It vibrated through the very walls, the ground beneath her feet. "They are awakening." The light from the machine was blinding now, and for a moment, Lena felt as though the room itself was closing in on her. Her breath caught in her throat, But she couldn't turn away. She had no choice but to witness what was happening. She had unleashed it. She had awakened the ancient force that had been buried beneath earth for millennia. In the darkness of the underground chamber, the ground cracked open further, and out of the fissures, a towering form began to emerge, an entity that seemed to stretch from the earth itself. It was not human, nor was it any kind of species Lena had ever encountered. It was a being forged of ancient, incomprehensible power, a sentinel that had been dormant for eons. Lena stumbled backward, her heart racing as the figure loomed before her. It was massive, towering far above her, its form shifting and changing as though it were made of the very fabric of time and space itself. Dark, metallic skin gleamed in the dim light, and its eyes, glowing with an unnatural fire, seemed to pierce into Lena's very soul. Suddenly, a deep, rumbling voice filled the chamber again, but this time, it was no longer just an echo. It was alive, full of purpose and rage. "You dared disturb our slumber. Now, you will witness our wrath." Lena's body froze, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. She had no idea what to do, how to stop this. The sentinel raised its hand, and the ground beneath her feet shook violently. It was clear now that the ancient power the humans had awakened was not just a force. It was a weapon, one that had been designed for a purpose far beyond any human understanding. In a panic, Lena looked around the chamber, searching for an escape. But there was no way out, only the dark, infinite pit that seemed to stretch endlessly beneath the surface of Earth. The sentinel spoke again, its voice resonating like a thunderclap. The universe's laws were clear. No one was to disturb the ancient slumber. And yet, you have broken that rule. You, human, have awakened us. And now we will reclaim what is ours. Lena's hands shook as she tried to think, tried to come up with a plan. She had to warn the others. She had to let them know what was happening. But as she reached for her communicator, she realized something. The connection was gone. The signal had been severed. There was no way to contact the outside world. The sentinel's eyes flickered, and a low growl filled the air as it began to move, its immense form pushing forward, each step shaking the very foundations of the earth. The walls around Lena seemed to cave in, the ancient machine still glowing ominously, and in the distance she could hear the rumble of more sentinels awakening. The universe was responding. The sleeping giants beneath Earth's surface were coming alive, and they were coming for revenge. Back in the council chamber, the news from Earth had spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Council of Worlds, races that had coexisted peacefully for eons, had been thrown into chaos. The Sentinels were not just an ancient race. They were a force of nature, designed to keep the balance of the universe intact. When they had been sealed away millennia ago, it had been a decision made by every civilization, a pact to ensure that such power would never again be unleashed. But the humans, by activating the long-dormant signal, had broken that pact. And now, the universe was facing the consequences. Dr. Zurich sat at his console, staring at the incoming data, his face pale. "This is it. The Sentinels are back. And if we don't stop them, they'll tear the galaxy apart." Irita's voice crackled through the comms, her tone cold and determined. "We won't let that happen. We need to gather every resource, every force we have. This is no longer just a threat to Earth. It's a threat to everything we've built. The Sentinels are powerful, but we can't let them reignite the war." Dr. Zurich's hand clenched into a fist. "We need to act now, before they reach Earth's surface. If they do, there won't be anything left to save." Back on Earth, Lena had no way of knowing that the entire universe was now mobilizing against the awakening Sentinels. She was alone in the depths of the planet, with nothing but the rumbling Earth and the overwhelming presence of the Sentinel in front of her. The being was close now, its form looming ever nearer, its eyes glowing like burning stars. In a final attempt to escape, Lena turned and sprinted toward the narrow hallway she had come from, but the floor beneath her crumbled away. She barely managed to catch herself before plunging into the abyss below. "You cannot escape," the sentinel said, its voice as cold and inevitable as death itself. "The galaxy will burn." Lena's breath came in short gasps as she tried to climb her way out of the collapse. The sentinel was right behind her, its massive shadow darkening everything in its path. But as Lena looked up at the dimming sky through the cracks in the walls, she saw something. A ship, a familiar shape, hovering in the distance. Could it be? It was humanity's last chance. The air above Earth crackled with an energy that had not been felt in millennia. The sentinels, ancient and relentless, were stirring from their long slumber beneath the planet's surface. Lena, now trapped in the crumbling ruins, had little time to think. The immense power of the sentinel towered above her, its cold eyes fixed on her, unblinking and merciless. "You have awakened the storm," the sentinel's voice rumbled, the vibrations echoing through Lena's bones. "And now, you will witness its wrath." With a swift motion, the giant raised its hand, and a blinding beam of energy shot toward Lena. The force of it sent her flying backward, slamming her into the cold stone walls of the chamber. She gasped for air, her vision spinning as she struggled to stay conscious. The ground beneath her trembled, and she realized with horror that the sentinel wasn't just a single entity. It was the beginning of something much worse. More sentinels were rising from the depths, their massive forms beginning to break free from their ancient prison. Each one was a force of nature in its own right, powered by energy and technology beyond anything humanity could comprehend. Lena tried to gather her bearings, her hands trembling as she pushed herself up. There had to be a way to stop this. But the reality was harsh. There was no escape from what she had unleashed. The sentinels were a cosmic scourge, and Earth was their target. As Lena turned, she saw the dark sky above, now filled with strange shifting patterns. The atmosphere was thick with energy, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Out in space, Erita's command ship, the Vanguard, was already in motion. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had scrambled their fleets, and the best minds from every race were working together. But even as they prepared for war, they understood one undeniable truth. The Sentinels could not be stopped by conventional means. Dr. Zurek's voice was urgent as he spoke to the Council. "We need to be ready to face the Sentinels head-on. They've been dormant for too long. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered. If they have resurrected, it means they've regained their full power, and they're coming for Earth." The Council chamber was a whirlwind of activity, with representatives from dozens of species all in agreement. The Sentinels had once ruled the galaxy, and their power was the reason they had been sealed away. Now that power was awake, but there was one thing that gave the galaxy hope: the ancient barrier that had kept the Sentinels imprisoned. A secret council mission had once been set in motion to prevent the Sentinels' return. There had been whispers of a hidden weapon that could hold them at bay, a weapon that only the oldest civilizations knew about. But now, that weapon was their only chance for survival. "We have one shot," Erita said, her tone steely as she addressed her crew. "The Sentinels have broken free, but we have a weapon, an ancient device known as the Starforge. If we can activate it, we might be able to disrupt their control over the energy they draw from Earth. But we need to find it first, and we don't have much time." In the depths of Earth, the sentinel that had been confronting Lena now raised its head. The ground cracked around them, and the sky above was ablaze with strange lights. Earth's surface was becoming unstable, as if the very planet was beginning to bend to the will of the ancient beings that had been buried there. "You dare defy us?" the sentinel boomed. "You, the childish species, are but dust beneath our feet." Lena stumbled to her feet, her mind racing. There had to be something she could do, a way to stop the awakening of the Sentinels before it was too late. But the machine, the ancient technology that had awoken them, what was it connected to? She remembered the symbols she had seen earlier in the chamber, the strange energy that had pulsed beneath the surface. And then it hit her, the Starforge. Could it be that the weapon the Council had mentioned was somehow tied to the very technology beneath Earth? Was this machine, this force that had woken the Sentinels, also the key to stopping them? Lena's eyes widened. She realized the horrible truth. The Starforge wasn't just a weapon. It was a key. The humans had accidentally unlocked it when they had disturbed the ancient slumber of the Sentinels. The machine beneath Earth was part of that key, and it was drawing power to wake the Sentinels in full force. She had to shut it down. But how? As the ground continued to shake and the Sentinel loomed closer, Lena scrambled for a solution. She glanced at her communicator, desperate to reconnect with the outside world. There was still no signal. It was clear she was on her own. The Sentinels had already begun their strike, and they were about to reclaim the Earth. Suddenly, the Sentinel spoke again, this time with a darker, more sinister tone. "You are too weak to stop us. All that remains is for you to witness the end of your species." Lena's heart raced as she tried to think. The world was falling apart around her, but she couldn't give up. She had to find a way to stop this madness before the entire planet was torn asunder. Up above, the first Sentinel ships began to descend from orbit, their immense forms filling the sky. The ground was splitting, the Earth's crust buckling beneath the pressure of what had been unleashed. And far, far away, the ancient forces of the galaxy began to mobilize. The Starforge was their last hope, and Lena's only chance at survival was to find it. And pray it still worked. As the Sentinels advanced, the universe itself seemed to hang in the balance. Time was running out, and the fate of Earth, and every civilization in the galaxy, was now in the hands of a single human who had no idea what the true cost of awakening the Sentinels might be. Lena stood at the edge of the abyss, her heart pounding in her chest. The ground trembled violently beneath her feet, and she could feel the heat radiating from the massive form of the Sentinel before her. It was close now, so close she could hear the deep hum of its ancient energy, feel the vibrations of its power reverberate through her bones. "You cannot stop what is coming," the Sentinel boomed, its voice like thunder. "The awakening is inevitable. The end is upon you." The words hung heavy in the air, but Lena refused to let fear take hold. She had no idea how she had found herself in this position, no idea how to fight the Sentinels or the force they wielded. But one thing was certain, she wasn't going to give up. The ancient machine beneath the Earth still hummed, its power growing by the second. Every moment it was active, the Sentinels' control over the planet grew stronger. It was no longer just a race against time. It was a battle for survival, for humanity, for every civilization in the galaxy that had come to depend on the fragile peace they had fought so long to create. Lena turned away from the Sentinel, her eyes scanning the chaotic landscape around her. The Earth was beginning to break apart, the ground splitting in jagged cracks as the machines and ships from above descended. The Sentinels were descending in full force now. She could hear the deep roar of their arrival, the sky filled with their enormous, shadowed forms. She had to find the Starforge. Her mind raced as she remembered the strange symbols she had seen earlier, the same ones that had appeared on the machine, the same ones that now pulsed with an ominous glow. They had to be connected. There was no other explanation. But as she stepped forward, something stopped her. A sound, a vibration beneath her feet. The Starforge was calling to her, pulling her towards it. In that moment, Lena realized the terrible truth. The Starforge wasn't just a weapon. It was the last line of defense. But it was also more than that. It was the key to preventing the Sentinels from reclaiming their ancient control over the universe. It had been designed as a failsafe that had been forgotten, buried beneath layers of time and dust. Lena sprinted toward the heart of the ancient ruins. The chamber was deep underground, and the more she ran, the closer she came to the Starforge's power. She could feel the energy gathering, felt the world around her warping in a way that could only be caused by something impossibly ancient. But she wasn't the only one who felt it. The Sentinels were closing in on her position, their eyes fixed on her like hungry predators. Their power had already corrupted the land around her, turning it into a landscape of destruction. But Lena had something the Sentinels didn't have: determination. She reached the heart of the chamber, her chest heaving with exhaustion. The walls around her began to glow with that same ominous energy, and before her lay the Starforge, an ancient device, dormant until now, built with technology so far beyond human comprehension that it looked like something from another universe entirely. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, its form shifting, flowing like liquid metal, yet solid and unwavering. The power it radiated was immense. Lena stepped forward, her hands trembling as she reached toward the core of the Starforge, the pulsating energy surrounding it seeming to reach out to her. It felt as though the very universe was watching, waiting for her decision. Activate it, a voice echoed in her mind, one she knew all too well. It was the voice of the Sentinel, and it sent a chill down her spine. Activate it, and you will save nothing. You will condemn your world. Activate it, and your species will be wiped from existence. But Lena wasn't afraid anymore. She had come too far to stop now. The Starforge was her last hope, the last hope of every species, every civilization that depended on Earth and the peace the galaxy had fought to maintain. Lena reached out and placed her palm on the core. The moment her hand made contact, the room erupted in light. The Starforge came to life in a brilliant explosion of energy, its power expanding outward in a pulse that was felt across the entire planet. The ground cracked open, and the Sentinel ships above the atmosphere faltered, their momentum momentarily interrupted by the force of the Starforge's energy. The Sentinel before Lena roared, its massive form staggering back as the light from the Starforge continued to surge. The energy it radiated was too much, too overwhelming. The balance that the Starforge had been designed to maintain was shifting, and the Sentinels could no longer control the planet, the Earth's energy now flooding through the machines. The Sentinels were weakening. The Starforge had done it, but the battle wasn't over. The galaxy had been on the edge of destruction, but this was only one small victory. The Sentinels would not give up easily. Their wrath would not be easily turned away. Lena stood, breathing heavily, but her eyes filled with determination. She had just struck the first blow, but now she had to survive. Earth's fate rested on her shoulders, and she would fight until the very end. The sky overhead began to tremble, as though the universe itself was in motion, reacting to the power that had just been unleashed. Lena didn't know how long she could hold off the coming storm, but she would do everything in her power to protect what was left of Earth and its people. The final stand had begun.